Hey guys, this is Mr. Nettles. Good afternoon, good morning, whichever time you're watching this video. Today we are going to be discussing character. So we're going to be talking about characters, and authors bring their characters and subjects to life in 5 key ways. So the 5 key ways that we're going to be talking about are appearance, traits, voice and dialogue, behaviors, and thoughts and emotions. Now, from the story that we read last week, or that we created, was Ghost Mysteries Book One. I'm going to read the first part of it so that we can remember what we talked about or what we read, and then we're going to talk about a character from the book. And we're going to pick one, and then we're going to figure out the 5 different ways the author, aka Mr. Nettles, how I created the character and what I put into my story to help develop this character and how it was and how that character was developed. So, Ghost Mysteries Book One. In the town of Somerville, there was a quiet street. Oak Street was like any other street in town, lined with houses, kids riding their bikes, sprinklers watering the grass. There is a yellow house at the end of the block. This is the home of Johnny and Susie Stider. They have lived there all their lives and had been happy until yesterday. Yesterday was when the mayhem all started. Their house is haunted. Johnny was downstairs doing his homework at the dinner table, and Susie was upstairs playing in her room. Suddenly, Johnny heard Susie let out a horrible scream. Ah! Johnny's head shot up. He quickly bolted upstairs. He made it to the second floor in 2 jumps. He slammed open Susie's door, and there she was, sitting at her dollhouse playing. He turned suddenly, and she turned suddenly and screamed at her brother, "What are you doing?" Johnny stared at his sister with a confused look on his face. He asked if she was okay. She replied, "Yes. Why?" "What are you doing barging in my room like that? I thought I heard you scream," he said. Susie looked confused and said she didn't. She walked over to the door and asked Johnny to leave her alone. That is when the door slammed shut, the kind of slam that might have broken the door off the hinges kind of slam. Johnny and Susie looked at each other with a look of terror and confusion. They both ran to the door and pulled the handle. The door wouldn't budge. Suddenly, a gust of cold air shot through the room. Shivers ran up the 2 siblings' spines. A loud, deep laugh could be heard throughout the house. Johnny and Susie looked at each other in horror. They both shouted, "Mom!" They ran to the office where she was working. She was in deep concentration and seemed to have no idea what was happening. The 2 children started yelling at once, trying to explain what was going on. She looked up, afraid something was terribly wrong, but she couldn't understand what they were saying. Finally, she let out a yell of her own. "Quiet!" Johnny and Susie stopped talking at once. Mrs. Stider then calmly asked Johnny what was going on. Johnny explained what had happened, and when he got to the door slamming on its own in the loud laugh, his mom stopped him in his tracks. She said it must be his imagination, and she didn't hear or feel a thing. Susie tried to back her brother up, but her mom was busy working and wouldn't hear another word. She sent them on their way. She shooed them out of her office, closed the door behind them, leaving them to figure out what was really going on. Johnny turned to Susie, put his hands on her shoulders. He looked straight at her and said, "We have to figure this out ourselves." Now, when we're asking about character and character traits, we want to talk about the 5 ways authors develop characters. And the way they develop their characters is, in the beginning, they might talk about their appearance. What does a character look like? Well, in this story, it did not say. I didn't put that in there. I didn't say how the character looked, unfortunately. So I'm going to write, it did not say, because when I go back to the story and I read at the beginning, this is the home of Johnny and Susie Stider. They've lived there all their lives and been happy until yesterday. Yesterday was when the mayhem started. Their house was haunted. Johnny was downstairs working on the dining room table doing his homework. It didn't say what he looked like, so I don't know. So this is left to your imagination, and you got to think about it and imagine what Johnny would look like. What does Johnny look like to you? I'm not sure. So, moving on. Voice and dialogue. How does this character sound to you? What does he sound like? Well, I'm going to tell you he sounds like a big brother. Huh. Well, what does that mean? I think, notice those words, I think. What strategy am I using to figure these things out? Well, whenever we decided what the theme was, we were using our inferencing skills to figure out what theme was. We use our inferencing skills to make educated guesses about what's going to happen at the end of the story, drawing conclusions. We use inferencing skills to make predictions. What do we think the story is going to say, or what do we think is going to happen? So we use inferencing skills for a lot of things. Well, in this case, for character, we are using context clues. I am going back to the story and I am finding clues in the story that help me to figure out how these characters are. So, context clues are the biggest tool in your toolbox that can help you figure out character traits. So, voice and dialogue. What do you think he sounds like? I think he sounds like a brother. I think he sounds serious. And where do I get serious from? I think he sounds serious. He sounds serious. Let's see. So when I go up here and I say, well, hold on, where does it say he sounds serious? Well, I'm going to say right here, he looked straight at his sister and said, we have to figure this out for ourselves. Does that sound serious to you? I think it does to me. Also, he sounds responsible. And how do I know he sounds responsible? Well, he ran up to his sister's room and said, I thought you screamed. Well, how does that make him sound serious? Well, that makes him sound responsible by going and checking on his little sister. Again, context clues. I need to find the text clues that help me to make these decisions. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. What traits and qualities or abilities does the character have? What are their abilities or qualities? So when I'm thinking about Mr. Johnny, I'm thinking about, well, he is responsible. He is responsible. How do I know that? I didn't say, as an author, I didn't write, Johnny is responsible. I didn't write that in there. Those words you didn't see. But in my mind, I know he's responsible. So now I need to go find the context clues that tell me he is responsible. So when I go back up to my story, I'm going to look and I'm going to think at the very beginning, what was he doing? Oh, yeah. Johnny was downstairs doing his homework at the dining room table. Does that sound responsible to you? It does to me. And I know a lot of you are thinking, Mr. Nettles' class always they do their homework. Yes, you guys are all responsible as well. So, just like Johnny and just like Mr. Nettles' class, you guys are all responsible. And how do I know? Because he was downstairs doing his homework. How else is he responsible? Well, again, I go back to that other clue. He ran upstairs to check on his sister. That makes him a responsible big brother. So he is responsible. He is brave. Well, okay. How do I know he is brave? Well, he said, he looked straight at his sister and said, we have to figure this out ourselves. Rather than run away, rather than go and hide in the closet, Mr. Johnny says, we have to go figure this out ourselves. I think that's a brave thing to do. So let's keep going. Look at the behaviors. How does the character act around others? How does he or she respond to conflicts or problems? Well, Johnny ran right to the danger to figure things out. And that clue that says we have to figure this out was that, again, that clue that says he ran right to the danger. He's brave. How does he respond to the conflict? Did he cry and whine to his mom when they shoot him out the door? No. He decided to take matters into his own hands and figure this out. So he is a problem solver. He is a problem solver. All right, let's keep going. Thoughts and emotions. Well, thoughts and emotions. What does the character think and feel? Or, yeah, what does the character think and feel? When I look and think about Mr. Johnny and how he thinks and feels, he might be worried. He might be worried about his sister when he goes and checks on her screen. How does he think or feel? He is concerned for his family. He goes and checks on his sister. He goes and tells his mom and tries to have her help. Those are things that you can put. Now, all of these sentences that I've added, he might be worried, he might be concerned. Johnny ran right to the danger to figure things out. He is a problem solver. Did I write any of those words in this story? No. Did you find them word for word in this story? No. You had to use your context clues tool to help you to figure out the character traits. These are 5 ways in which an author builds a character. He builds the characters by their appearance, their traits, their voice and dialogue, their behaviors, and their thoughts and emotions. Hey guys, we just talked about character, and you have the tools in your toolbox to be able to help answer any questions that might come up about characters and stories that you read. Have a good morning, have a good afternoon, and I will talk to you guys soon.